Okay, welcome back to algebra. We're going to talk today about negative exponents, and this is starting 3.3, dealing with negative exponents. And before we get into negative exponents, I want to review the properties of exponents real quickly because it's a very important concept, and we'll do a little bit of abbreviation, but multiplication property of exponent says that if I have x to the a times x to the b, it's the same as saying x a plus b. So we add the exponents together. The multiplication property of division says if I have x to the a divided by x to the b, it's the same as saying x a minus b. And then we had the multiplication property of power. So if I have x to the a to the power b, it's basically x a b, or I multiply a times b. And the last one is the multiplication property of 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So I wanted to review that real quickly so that that was fresh in your mind. Remember that an exponent, if I had x to the 3, is the same as saying x times x times x. All right, well, let's get into this concept of negative exponents. And the division property, which we mentioned here, is basically saying that the division property of exponents is the basis of the definition of negative exponents. So let's say I do have x to the negative 1, and if you remember, it's the same as, or doing the opposite we did here. So we've put it down as a denominator, and we would rewrite it. Remember, we do not want negative exponents in our solution, so that's the first thing that we would have to do. So we basically do the reciprocal, we put it on the bottom, and let's say it's on the bottom. What do we do? Well, if I have x to the negative 1, it's the same as saying x to the 1 power. Okay, how did we get there? Well, it's a little different. What if we take it, make it multiple steps here? X to the negative 1 we said is making it a denominator, so we would go like that. So it's 1 divided by x. Well, how do I get that into proper format? I could rewrite it and say 1 divided by 1 over x. And we know that that's the same as saying 1 times the reciprocal, which is x over 1. Notice why I don't use the x for multiplication, because it does look like an x. I got to change that to a dot. And so that's the same as saying x, or x to the 1 power. So as we take these, we do a couple more examples. 5 to the negative 2 is the same as saying 1 over 5 squared, not fully simplified yet, or 1 over 25. So that wraps up the concept of negative exponents. And again, if you have any questions, remember that if it goes to the 0 power, it always equals no 1. Now there's one caveat to this negative exponent, and if they use a variable, let's change colors here for a second. Let's say I have 5 to the negative a. Well, the one rule says is that a cannot equal 0. Well, why is that? Well, if I was to plug 0 into that, 5 to the negative 0 is the same as saying 1 over 5 to the 0. And we know that we cannot divide by 0, so that would be an undefined. So a cannot equal 0.